If Islam is truly a religion of peace, the criticism we often receive is, why does it appear that it's mainly Muslims that are committing suicide acts, acts of terrorism? Why are, all suicide bombers Muslims is often the question we get asked.
Number one, it is not true until recently that these acts were committed by people claiming to be Muslims, even though, like I said, even if it were the case, it still doesn't justify it because the Qur'an does not teach that. But it is not true, factually. If you look even at the State Department's reports about terrorism, you find that in the last few decades, there have been many acts of terrorism, and sometimes we don't stop to define what is terrorism. Terrorism, in the most inclusive, hopefully fair definition, is the deliberate targeting of the innocents, non-combatants, whether the culprit or the victim is an individual, a group, or a state, for that matter. I hope that this is a fair enough, inclusive type of definition. It is in that definition that you find the whole history is full of that, including recent history. And like I said, stats show that most of these acts were not done by Muslims. How about, for example, the problem in Ireland? I'm not labeling either group, but what has been the violence that went on in Northern Ireland, in other parts of the world. In fact, most of it was not committed by Muslims. I'm not defending, again, those who committed a wrong act, but I'm saying even the allegation that only Muslims are committing that is wrong. And what's happening in the world today, we find various forms of terrorism in various parts of the world. Many are committed also by non-Muslims. But again, as indicated earlier, maybe the involvement of some Muslims can be understood but not justified. Understood but not justified. And they will try to find out the roots of the problem, not to say that this is an excuse for it, is because of, again, the severe oppression of Muslims, the occupation of their land, the bulldozing of their homes, the dispossession of Muslims, physical occupation, domination. There are so many factors that are perceived in the Muslim world as the ultimate of injustice, in which case you always, as you find in any faith community, some extremes who would take it upon themselves to try to correct that, irrespective of what the restrictions and limitations of the Qur'an teaches, irrespective of whether they can do that alone or consult and take the consensus of the majority of Muslims, which they don't. So these are also, political, social aspects of turmoil. That, again, to speak about what the media term as suicide bombing, and media in the Arab world and Muslim world give it a different title. So sometimes there seem to be some serious difference in perspective. To say that all Muslims are doing that is not accurate. Factually, it is not accurate. You tell me, who assassinated Indira Gandhi in India? Wasn't that a suicide operation? Who assassinated Rajiv Gandhi, her son? What's happening in Sri Lanka? Several operations that involves some sort of, you could say, term it as suicide type of operation. It is nothing new. It is nothing new and nothing unique to Muslims. The Japanese, during the Second World War, the kamikaze, that's suicide operations. In the First and Second World War, historians refer to many examples of soldiers sacrificing themselves in the battlefield for what they believed as their just cause. Even in Iraq, you hear about the story of a soldier who is hailed as a hero because he put himself, in the face of an exploding bomb in order to save his fellow soldiers. So the notion of sacrificing oneself for a cause or for fear of persecution, like the Masada, which was attributed to have been done also by Jewish people in the past. In Christianity, the age of martyrs, even though it wasn't attacking others, but the fact that they sacrificed themselves for their faith, it is a common notion that you find among all people, all faith, that some people are so much convinced of the justness and nobility of their cause, whether you agree with them or not. That's another issue, that they are willing to sacrifice their lives for that. So factually it is not correct, but I must say, after all, that the guidelines of the Qur'an and the teaching of the Prophet are quite clear, and I've just mentioned them a few minutes ago, that any operation, even if you have a just cause, any operation that targets deliberately non-combatants, it is not permissible. Islam does not only teach or mainly teach how to die, above all it teaches how to live, and for that matter to live justly, peacefully, and in a dignified manner. So having to fight for your rights is the exception, but peaceful coexistence has got to be the focus in the direction.